Today we're going to be making this with SVG and GSAP. It's like a jiggly old fupa. Before we begin, I wanted to mention this video sponsor, Skillshare.com, which is an online learning community for creators with over 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. So whether you want to fuel your curiosity, your creativity, or even your career, Skillshare is the perfect place to do just that. For instance, you're about to watch my UI design tutorial, but you could watch these full UI UX courses at Skillshare. Skillshare is also super affordable with an annual subscription of being less than $10 a month. But if you're one of the first 500 people to click on the link here in the description in YouTube, then you get the first 2 months 100% free. So join up. Hey everyone, what's up? Gary Simon of Corsetro. So today, as I showed you initially, we're gonna be creating this here, and it involves first stepping into a vector application. I'm gonna be using Adobe XD with the pen tool. You can use whatever you want, Illustrator, Sketch, whatever. And we're gonna create basically 3 different SVG graphics, and we're gonna make them sort of morph into each other with the help of GSAP, which is the GreenSock Animation Platform, which I've covered in the past. And if you're not sure what that is, look at my crash course, just do a channel search. And yeah, it's a very cool effect that we can utilize here, and it has a number of different use cases. All right, so I'll shut up and let's get started. All right, so we're gonna get started here in Adobe XD. You can use any vector drawing application if you wish, as long as it has a pen tool, so we can get started. All right, so the first thing we'll do is, instead of using like a rectangle to make this based on a panel, we're gonna use just a pen tool to construct this, and that'll allow us to easily add anchor points with Bezier curves. So left click up here on the upper left corner, and I'm gonna hold Alt and then left click and drag to create a single handle over here that will give us a Bezier curve, essentially. So I'm going to come back down till we have our guide at the very bottom here, and then left click and drag. And then I'm also I don't want a Bezier curve to affect the next anchor point, so I'm going to I'm going to hold Alt and then bring this in right there. And if you get real zoomed up, get this better situated to where it needs to be. All right, cool. Now, click, let's see here. I wish there was a guide that showed me. Oh, there it is. There it is. Now we have both our guides, and now we can connect it up. All right, so this is our Bezier curve. I'm gonna get rid of the border. I'm gonna give it a fill here. Yeah, right around there is fine. And there we go. If you want the effect to be more exaggerated, you can take this in a little bit more. All right, so we're gonna duplicate that with Control D. And we're going to invert it. So we're going to start here. The SVG is going to start with this path. It's going to morph into this one. You can affect this. You can mess with these however you wish. I'm just going to make them go the opposite direction, so they kind of like wobble. Like that. We'll duplicate that. And then this one, it'll just be the regular square rectangle looking container. So let me zoom up here. Mouse scroll wheel. There we go. Same thing here. And there we go. All right, awesome. So those are our 3 SVG graphics essentially. So now I'm gonna rename them. This is gonna be start, this is gonna be middle, and you guessed it, you're so smart, it's gonna be end. No, end with an apostrophe. Okay, so now we're going to take all 3 and we're going to export them as SVG graphics that we're not necessarily going to use or import, but we're going to grab the code from them. So we're going to change this. Where am I at? Create an images folder. This is a blank folder that I've created called Elastic Bar. And we'll just select the folder and export. Okay, so now let's, no, wrong one. There we go. Now I have Visual Studio Code open with this empty folder, except it has our images in there. Let's create an index.html, and let's also create a CSS folder with a main.css file. We're only going to have like 3 rule sets, so I'm not concerned about using Sass here. So right here, exclamation point, enter for our Emmet boilerplate, and then link, enter, and we'll reference our CSS main.css file. Awesome. Okay, so now let's get the HTML. Very simple stuff. Once again, div period for a class, and then we're going to do wrapper. Hit enter, and then we're going to do our SVG. So we're going to go to our start SVG graphic, copy it, paste it, and then we're going to get rid of a few attributes here. Control B to get rid of that sidebar. We're going to get rid of this XMNLNess or whatever the hell it's called, and the width and height. We're also going to add another attribute here in a second, but for now we're just going to keep this. So also we don't need transform. We can get rid of that, and that's it. So let's save that. Let's go to our main.css file. There's only a few role sets. So body and HTML, we have at 100 viewport height. Our SVG graphic itself is just going to be position absolute top left with 350 pixels or so and height 100%. I did throw a media query in here just to show that this could be responsive as well. So right there. By the way, you can grab all the code from Codepen in the YouTube description if you don't want to have to paste as well and you're lazy. So Control B, right click, open with live server. You can only get this live server option if you go to extensions, type in live server, install this one, reload, come back, and then you can right click, open with live server. And momentarily we will see this. All right, not quite right, is it? Let's try adding that preserve aspect ratio attribute. So it's kind of complex to describe what this thing does, but let's just type it in, preserve aspect, not preserver, preserve aspect. Jesus Christ, Gary, learn how to type. We're gonna do X mid, Y mid, slice. What is that? Now, when it comes to trying to describe what this preserve aspect ratio attribute is, there's a good tutorial here. I'm going to try to remember to link in the YouTube description that it'll describe all this stuff. I'm going to be doing, like I said, a full tutorial of my own, but this will kind of give you an idea if you read through this about what this does essentially. And it has a good summary right here. If the viewport and the view box do not have the same aspect ratio, the width to height ratio, as in like the browser versus the SVG graphic, then you need to specify how the SVG viewer is to display the SVG image. And these values right here are how you do that, along with right here as well, this meet, slice, and none. All right, so right now, if we look at the result, it's not perfectly lined up, but we'll address that eventually. So for now, let's go ahead and import our GSAP. So we're going to use a CDN for this just to make things simple. This is it right here. Once again, you can go to the Codepen and just copy that if you wish, so you don't have to sit there pausing the video and all that annoying stuff. So we're going to create an instance of the timeline. And by the way, if you've never used GreenSock or GSAP rather before, I do have several videos on the topic and a crash course as well. So this stuff will hopefully make sense after watching that. If not, then there might be something wrong with you. So TL from, we're going to say, we're going to target the path start ID. It'll last for, let's see, 1.5 seconds. And we're going to say X. We're going to say negative 100%, and then we're going to give an ease option of expo.ease in out. So if you type in Google like a timeline max easing or GSAP easing, you'll find these options right here. This is just going to be moving this whole SVG graphic, or rather this path right here, the start path, from the left off the side of the browser. And that's why we use from instead of to right here. So if we save it, we'll see if I can get this thing over here. We'll see it comes over. All right. So now we'll do another one. And this is where we're going to do the fun stuff. So TL2 path start. We're going to say 2 seconds. In the attribute, we'll have an object. All right, so this is where we specify the different path attributes, or the D attributes rather, of the other graphics. So we can take this one right here. This is middle, and specify that there. We'll put a comma. Shift Alt and down arrow key will replicate that line. And then we want to do the end one right here. All right, just like that. So let's put a comma. We have an ease. We're going to do elastic, ease out. All right, so that's one of the other options that you can find in the easing documentation of GSAP or Timeline Max. And the elastic thing is really gives it that elastic effect. So this is essential if you're going for that. We're going to put an offset right here as well so that it starts 1 second rather than waiting 1.5 seconds to start. Yeah, I think that'll be good right there. All right, so we still have an alignment issue. It should be going all the way up and down, but let's refresh this. And you can see how cool that is. So I played around with it a little bit, and we have to make a few changes. So what I'm discovering is each time you create these SVG graphics from scratch, if you're just doing it free-handed and you aren't doing it very specifically, it can change up your coding, even if you did it previously and you thought you did it the same. So to make this work correctly, what I ended up doing is making a few adjustments. So first of all, we could see the width of this SVG graphic is 400, and you can see that inside of right here as well. So if you click on this, you'll see it's 400.26 and height is 1080.06. I didn't get exact, but it's no big deal anyhow. That's where it gets these values from. So we want to change this here to 400 first of all. So we save that, and now that gets us pretty much to our 100% height, but we still have that area on the left. So what we want to do now is I'm going to change this from to a 2, and we're going to change this value here. We're going to offset it, I think, by like a -10%. So if we save that, that is shifting it off to the screen by 10%, so we don't see that side of it. Now that's still kind of screwed up from the beginning animation. We want this to come off this way. So we're going to add on the path element a transform attribute, translate, and then we put in 0, and then I believe we're putting in about -420. And again, a lot of this is just I had to experiment with it. Oops. Let's do -420 and 0. X and Y. There we go. There we go. So now if we refresh, we can see it come and take shape exactly as we wanted it to. So now, obviously in the context of a real project, you would have other content here and perhaps content inside of here. And you may be wondering, how would you set the content up in here? Well, of course, you wouldn't be adding the content within like the SVG element itself. You would, being that we did make the SVG graphic or element itself a position absolute, we could stack other columns on top of it using position absolute, and obviously using z-index to make sure it sits on top of it. But you don't necessarily have to make this position absolute either in order for it to work. So ultimately it's about experimenting, and perhaps I will do a more robust tutorial where we do actually work in content within this sort of context where we're using SVG to kind of structure the different layouts. But really, I just wanted to show the GSAP element and also how to create this sort of elastic effect. All right, guys, so hopefully you found that useful. If you did, make sure to subscribe, give a like, and also a comment. I'll see you guys soon with yet another tutorial. Goodbye.